Hello there, Mr. Space Bear here, and today we're going to look at the various roles in Journeys in Middle-earth. The role that you choose is very important because it's a big part of what defines what you're going to be able to do throughout the course of the game. So we'll look a little bit at multi-classing into different roles. We'll look at some of the key defining cards that kind of define the archetype for each role. And hopefully, if you're not sure what you want to play next, it will give you a good idea of what you might be most interested in. So for every class that you play, you start with 3 cards in your deck, and you actually get to start with the first card of each role in play. So it's really important to look at that one to figure out if you like playing that class. The first 2 roles that we're going to look at are roles that I kind of recommend more for low player counts. And that's because they do better if there aren't a lot of nearby heroes. So Delver really excels in darkness. But you can see this skill here is pretty cool. Forging Ahead says at the start of their turn, if there are no nearby heroes, gain an inspiration. He also likes to hang out in darkness, right? So at the end of your turn, if you're in darkness, when you test, if you're in darkness. So typically when you're in darkness, you're picking up fear. So not something that a ton of people are going to want to be nearby you. So kind of interesting there. In the same way, Burglar's starting card says if there are no nearby heroes, you may convert 2 inspiration to 1 success. So obviously you kind of want to stick on your own. This role is all about becoming hidden and then using that to your advantage. So can play with others, but because of self-sufficient, it's kind of better off on its own. The next, let's see here, 5 roles actually play really well with the more heroes that you have. So Shield Maiden is pretty cool. One of her most unique cards is this one, Back to Pack. Your skills with Strike have Guard X and Rest X, where X is equal to the number of heroes in your space. So you could potentially be blocking, 5 damage or healing 5 damage around with those cards if everyone is grouped up. So great in higher player counts. And then a lot of her other effects are going to do similar things that help when you have high player counts. Our Provisioner is all about food, and food is typically going to help you heal. And then this skill is one of the first ones I think you'd want to build too. After you end your turn, you may choose any number of nearby heroes to each gain 1 inspiration for each aid, food, or song card you have in play. So again, if there's only 1 nearby hero, maybe this isn't going to be that cool, but if you can pass out 3 or 4 inspiration with this card, that'll be pretty neat. In addition to that, there are some really powerful cards here. Like Feasting increases your damage and fear limits by 1 for everyone. So again, it's a little bit more powerful if you have more players. Guide is pretty interesting in that it's trying to get through your deck faster. So the starting card says when you scout, you may spend an inspiration to prepare an extra card. These first 2 cards you also get in your deck let you reveal extra cards when you scout. So pretty cool. A lot of the cards in this deck are actually pretty forgettable, but this one is awesome at high player counts. At the start of the rally phase, you may choose a trait. If you do, each hero may prepare 1 skill with that trait from their discard pile, then discard this skill. So something that you have to kind of plan for right away, but with a group that is planning a lot of similar traits, that can help you prepare a lot of extra cards. It's really quite neat. Musician deals with songs, And a lot of the songs are going to help nearby heroes. So, for example, a traveling song that you start with, when you move into a space, you may discard it, but you went up to 2 nearby heroes to gain an inspiration. So obviously, if you've only got 2 players in the game, that's not as helpful. And then a lot of these other cards let you or nearby heroes heal or flip damage. So better in higher player counts. This Crescendo of Dawn is one that is pretty nuts. You and nearby hero ignore darkness and add smite to each of your attacks. But then at the end of the shadow phase, you have to discard this one because that's so good. Okay. Herbalist is another kind of healing role. The starting card after you prepare a skill with inspiration, you may discard the skill to gain 2 inspiration or become determined. This one, the starting card in your deck says that after lore increases, your nearby hero may scout 1. But then a lot of the effects are kind of similar to the musicians as far as the healing goes. So before your nearby hero would suffer damage or fear, you can prevent that. At the end of your turn, you may discard the skill for you or nearby hero to discard some damage. Yada, yada, yada. This one lets heroes in your space ignore darkness, so obviously better with more heroes in your space. And a lot of stuff that's dealing with nearby heroes. Now this class actually has an interesting skill, Insight, that may be a good multi-class skill. So once per round, a hero in your space may discard a prepared skill to scout 2. So again, kind of helpful to dig through your deck to find something specific, and it only costs you 3 experience. So this is a class that you could start with, go grab Insight, and then instantly switch to another role. So kind of cool there. Captain is from the very beginning of the game. This one's all about boosting your allies. So there's going to be a lot of effects here that you and nearby heroes may move into spaces. You may, at the start of your turn, discard a prepared skill and then scout 3. Yada, yada, yada. It's got a lot of different effects, but all with nearby heroes. These next roles that we're going to go through don't really depend if you have a high or low player count. They each do interesting things that are actually pretty well aligned with, I think, personalities. So if you like to move a lot, Traveler is great for you. You're going to do a lot of sprinting and moving around. This Fleet of Foot is fantastic. Once per round before you travel, you can move a space and it sprints. Forgotten Roads lets you discard it for you and a nearby hero to move a couple spaces. And then Around Every Corner is another interesting one. Once per round after you move into a space with a person, search, or terrain token, you may scout 1. So that card can keep you sprinting all over the map if you can keep pulling cards with sprint when you scout. Guardian is all about preventing damage, and there's some really interesting builds that you can make with this when you get into items. A card that you definitely want to think about for this one is Guarded Strike, which gives all your skills with Guard Strike 1. And before you strike, you gain an inspiration. So it makes it a little bit more flexible. If you're not taking a lot of damage or you need a little offensive burst, you can switch that up. This is a fascinating one, Lore Keeper. So in general, I'm not in love with the starting cards here, but that's because this role is kind of supporty, right? So there's 2 really neat cards here, Collector and Keeper of the Chronicles, which say that when you purchase the skill, you don't actually add them to your deck, you set them aside as reference, and you're increasing lore faster. So after a hero gains a trinket, lore increases by 2, and after an adventure ends, lore increases by 2. So Great in a big player count. If you're playing a low player count, you're really kind of hamstringing yourself by playing those cards. Um, but really a sacrificial move to pick those up and help the team upgrade their items faster. This card is also nuts. So when you attack, you may remove the skill from the adventure to double the number of hits applied. Obviously, that's going to be great. So I could see someone wanting to pick that and then kind of multi-classing away from this. This class is also pretty fantastic for these two cards. Increase your wisdom by 1, guard 2, and increase your wit by 1, guard 2. Both at the cost of only 3. So hopefully this makes sense if you're testing with an item that requires wisdom or wit. This is a fantastic card to pick up after probably just one adventure. You can multi-class away from this, and you know, if you're Bilbo with 4 wit, you can bump your wit to 5. So quite spectacular there. Then we've got the Smith. You start with the hammer and tongs, this trinket. It helps kind of boost other people's attacks. So you can boost your own attacks too by adding hits and smite. So, you know, it's kind of a little bit of a support role that can lead to your main damage dealer boosting their damage even more, which is kind of cool. Forge's Fire is also really neat. When you attack, you may discard the skill to choose an equipped trinket. Add 1 success for each depletion token on that trinket. So if you get something with 4 depletion tokens, that can be really cool. And then Pathfinder, kind of similar to the Traveler. You're just running all over the place. So multi-classing from between these two can be quite fun. One key one there, Honed Instincts. After you sprint, you may move an additional space, and your skills with sprint have strike 2 and hide. So once you've run all over the map and explored everything and are ready to come back to your team, you can actually start dealing some damage. We've got 4 left. Trickster is really quite neat. I'm not the biggest fan of most of the skills in this one, but it has 2 really cool cards. So quite a spectacle. You can discard this skill and spend any amount of inspiration. For each inspiration you spend this way, you choose another hero to perform an action. Now, if you happen to multi-class with Smith, that lets your inspiration limit be increased by 2, and let's say you're Bilbo and you have a high inspiration count or inspiration pool, you could potentially be passing out 5 or 6 actions with 1 card, which is kind of game breaking. So I really want to try that. The other card that's really cool on this one is Eye for Opportunity. After you prepare this skill, each nearby hero scouts 2 with strike 2 and rest 2. So obviously that's really cool. I think personally this is a multi-class kind of role where you pick up 1 or both of these cards and then move somewhere else. Soldier is just absolutely nuts. This guy does ridiculous things with tactics. So Comrade in Arms, when you were a nearby hero would discard a prepared tactics skill, you may discard this instead. Love of War and Valor, after you strike with this skill, you and each hero with a prepared tactics skill may scout 2. So you start with both of those cards. So if you can build around tactics, this gets pretty nuts. And it gets even better. One of the role-defining cards here is Break the Wave. At the end of your turn, you may discard this skill for you and each hero with a prepared tactic to become determined and attack if possible. So again, build a party around tactics, and this role gets out of hand. Meddler has a lot of options. I really want to talk about mainly two cards, Hidden Plans and Contemplation, which are kind of the role-defining cards here. Contemplation lets you have up to 6 skills prepared at the same time. So if you get someone who can do a lot of extra scouting and prepare extra skills, that is extremely powerful. And then Hidden Plans, during your turn you may discard the skill to scout for and prepare up to 3 additional cards. Obviously those two work beautifully together. There's some other cool options in there, but they get really expensive, so it's hard to buy all the good cards in Meddler. And then last but not least is Hunter. This is really just about hitting hard, right? So your starting skills have strike 3, they strike extra hard, and then most of the skills that you're gonna pick up here are just striking and adding different effects like pierce or cleave to your attacks. I hope you enjoyed a run through of the various roles in Journeys of Middle-earth. There's really a lot of neat options to pick from. We'll take a longer look at multi-classing in later videos, and we'll also dive into heroes and how the build that you might want changes a little bit when you're looking at the hero and then also the other members of your party. So be on the lookout for those, and goodbye for now.